One of the things that I have been challenging myself lately is to be creating more depth and interesting layers to the videos that I'm shooting. And so today, when I had this insight, I was like, oh, I really want to create a video around this because I know how impactful it will be. And right away, my mind went to, yeah, but you got to be somewhere cooler than your kitchen and, doing something interesting or in a cool place. And so I was going to wait. And I decided that I couldn't wait. And I'll tell you why. Lately, I've been talking a lot about your vision being the path, and whatever you want to create and what the outcome of that creation will be is also the path of how you get to it. So the insight that I created with this client today, I'll share with you in a minute, but I'm going to keep you on the edge while I explain why it was so important for me to shoot this video today, right now, in my boring kitchen without the depth of the background behind it. I was on the phone with a client this evening, and he was telling me about how I asked him what in this conversation would create the biggest impact for your life. Let's make sure that this conversation creates a change that's going to impact your life in a profound way. And he said, well, the thing that I want to work on is I got to get into this exercise rhythm. And so we talked about the way that people feel present biased. So even though we know we have to work out and you know the impact it's going to have on your body, you still choose to not do it because you're like, well, tomorrow I'll do it. And I even plan out when I'll do it tomorrow. And then tomorrow rolls around and you're like, well, I should listen to my body, and my body's telling me that I don't want to work out, so I'm going to do that. And so you keep doing this over time until eventually you're like, kind of like don't have any hope that you're ever going to do it again. So we talked about the depth of around the different ways to be motivated. And I asked him, why do you want this? Why do you want to get into this groove? And he said, well, I look around and I see the other people, not out of judgment, but out of fear. I look around and I see what other people look like and they feel like, and they're miserable and they're unhealthy. And I look at my family and I see that, heart attacks run in my family, and I just don't want to end up like that. And he says, I know that's going to happen if I don't make a change. And I said, future bias. You are actively creating that by not taking action. And he kind of sat back and, whoa, really took that in. He said, I'm actively creating that by not taking action. And I said, yes, inaction is an action. Inaction is an act of creation. You are actively creating something by not taking action toward the thing that you want to be creating. Effectively, you're creating by default by not taking action on the thing that you want to create. Inaction is an action of creation. And so really kind of just letting that process and giving you a moment to find out, where are you creating by default? So when I thought about this insight that I wanted to share, I thought, damn it, I have to do it right now, because by delaying it, that's also an act of creation. So despite the fact that I'm not, living into my challenge to myself in terms of creating depth in different ways, I am creating a context for this video by demonstrating that taking action is important, even if the action isn't perfect. Because by not taking action, you're still creating. You're just creating the thing you don't want. And so in this session, I said to him, since we know that inaction is an action, I can't think of any more powerful way to serve and impact you in this conversation than to say, go change your clothes, we're going to work out. And we did. And I love that he rose to the challenge, because I think that's so cool, right? Like, totally unexpected. Could have said no, but we had 15 minutes left in the session, and I said, go change. Let's go. Let's create the action. You can talk about motivation and you can work through it. And sometimes there's some stuff that you really need to work through before you can actually create the change. But in this case, creating the change was the action. It was all that was necessary. Get past inertia, move beyond the mental, and just get into the physical. Create the action so that you're no longer creating by default. It was the first time I've ever worked out with a client in the middle of a session, but it was cool. It was great. It was exciting, and he left the session feeling energized and inspired and in motion. In motion. One of the other things that I'll share as I wrap this up is something I've been so moved by and so surprised by lately is by how many people suffer from anxiety. Someone I know shared a post on Facebook recently where they said, I'm having panic attacks. What are your solutions for panic attacks? And aside from the fact that I was moved by the bravery of this person to just share this on Facebook and ask for support that way, I was even more surprised by how many people responded, saying, oh, here's what I do, and here's what I do, and here's what I do. And I thought, are that many people really suffering from anxiety or struggling with the experience of anxiety? And I'm going to share with you a controversial truth, and it's my truth. It's not the truth, but this is my truth about anxiety. Anxiety is avoidance, and anxiety is inaction. I like to think about anxiety not as a thing or a diagnosis or a problem. Rather, anxiety is a reaction and an experience. In fact, for some, anxiety might be the strategy that they use to respond to the challenges and the struggles in their life. So when I hear someone say that, they were diagnosed with anxiety disorder, I kind of want to cringe inside and say, it's not that I doubt that you're struggling with a repeated experience of anxiety. It's more that you're having a lot of experiences in your life that are triggering an experience of anxiety. So if you just say, I have anxiety disorder, then you're kind of like left without a whole lot of options, because then you're questioning, how do I fix anxiety? How do I solve my anxiety? I would be inclined to challenge you to say, what is creating the experience of anxiety that I'm having? Is it work? Is it a relationship? Is it physical stress? Is it emotional stress? And then work through it from there. Because if you're just trying to solve anxiety, that's a big problem to solve. And anxiety gets worse because it's paralyzing. It's a physical experience, and it's paralyzing. And so when you're paralyzed, you don't take action. And the lack of action to resolve the experience creates more anxiety. So it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. So I just wanted to bring that in because it's something that I've been seeing so much, and it feels really important to this idea of inaction is an action of creation, and a paralyzing anxiety is a form of inaction. So we're stepping back away from solving a problem and just reacting to the emotional and physical experience of living in that stress. So a way to start to break apart anxiety is to take a step back. And this might have to happen, after the high heart rate is up and the physical experience comes down a little bit, to step back and say, what specifically is creating the experience of anxiety? Right? That word experience is important. You are not an anxiety disordered person. Right? It's not a character flaw. It's an experience of anxiety. What is creating the experience of the anxiety that I am feeling in the moment? If it's work backwards. Take a little action. The smallest possible action that can create some movement away from the problem. If it's a relationship, what is the smallest piece of action that I can take to change the way that I'm relating to experiencing this challenge or this problem? And create some action, just a little bit. If it's a breath, if it's exercise, if it's something that just changes the physiological experience of anxiety so that you can move forward just a little bit. So I want to just conclude by asking you to check in with yourself. Where are you experiencing a struggle or a frustration where you are pausing from or resisting taking action because either you're not sure what action to take, or you're internalizing it or too mental about what the problem is. And just take a step back for a moment and ask yourself, what am I creating by default by not taking any action? By my inaction, what am I creating? And what would I like to create instead? And what is the smallest possible step that would create the biggest impact? I'd love to hear what you think. If you want to challenge me, if you want to get into conversation about this, if you want to integrate this with your personal experience and you need support with that, comment below, share this video with your friends. Based on the experience that I've seen, there are a lot of people struggling with this particular thing. So if you think that this insight would be helpful for them, share the video, connect with me below, and I'd love to hear from you. Take some action.